Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, The Blue Truck. It was a warm, boring summer afternoon. I was only 12 years old. It was one of those days where there was absolutely nothing to do other than sit around. I needed something, anything to pass time with. So I picked myself up off of my bed and stepped out the door into the mild air. I strolled lazily down the street to my best friend's house. I opened the door and walked right in as usual. His mother stepped gracefully out of the kitchen, her long orange hair dangling behind her, and greeted me inside. I blushed, said hello, and walked upstairs to my friend Justin's room. He looked his usual self for the most part. He had short black hair, lots of freckles, and was very skinny. However, he seemed almost depressed. I figured he was just bored like I was. We talked inside for a few minutes about how school would be starting next week, or about some fishing trip he took with his dad. Something along those lines. I don't quite remember. Anyway, after we were drained of interesting things to talk about, I asked him if there was anything he wanted to do. He stared at the floor for a few seconds, and then without raising his head told me that there was a cool path in the woods he had found down the street behind the big blue water tower. I followed Justin downstairs swiftly in excitement for finally having something to do. We got to the door and opened it wide, speeding outside. As we got onto the rough, gravelly sidewalk, Justin started rambling on about some sort of creepy thing he had found in the woods. He was looking straight forward as he talked, but I wasn't really paying attention. I had my head turned away from him, looking towards his house, where his mother was outside doing garden work. I was now completely ignoring him, with my eyes fixed upon his beautiful mother. He turned to me and stopped mid-sentence. Now noticing what I was really focused on, he punched me hard in the arm. I stumbled sideways, and me being thrown back into reality. I blushed and stared at the ground, rubbing my arm just inside. We walked the rest of the way down the street in silence. We got to the water tower. I pointed out that the rest of the path was fenced off because of the water tower. Justin remained silent, but hopped onto the fence and started climbing. I began questioning whether we were allowed on the property, but he ignored my question reluctantly. I began climbing after him. We got past the fence and he led me behind the tower and onto a dirt path surrounded completely by trees and bushes. He was starting to speed up as we went further into the woods. I tried keeping pace, but he was almost breaking into a sprint. I dove forward and grabbed his shoulder from me, pulling him next to me. I looked him straight in the eyes and asked, "Dude, why are you acting so strange?" He stared at the ground again and gave me an explanation. "Well, I was up here yesterday, and why, you just have to see it, okay?" He sounded genuinely disturbed when he said that to me. I told him that I could trust him no matter what, but I insisted that he slowed down. He agreed and we continued walking in silence, side by side. We came to a large ravine filled with fast-flowing water. There was a poorly constructed makeshift bridge made out of logs. I stepped carefully along the bridge, following my friend. We came to a large clearing shortly after walking across the bridge. He led me straight through a thorny patch of bushes rather than following the path. There I saw a tiny pond underneath with dense bushes, with a big blue pickup truck sticking out of the middle of the pond. The water was shallow, so I had no problem following Justin. As we waded through the water, we were just a few feet away from the truck when he stopped and turned to me. He looked really upset and frightened. He told me that what he was about to show me was absolutely sickening, and that after I saw this, I may never speak to him about it ever again. My curiosity was now overwhelming, and I insisted he show me whatever was in the truck. He stayed back, crying. I stepped slowly towards the truck and peered cautiously inside the driver's window. I saw the dead, bloodied bodies of Justin and his mother, with their lifeless faces frozen in fear. I turned around and Justin was no longer behind me. I panicked and sweat started running all over my body. I could feel tears running down my face. I fell to my knees with an overwhelming feeling of fear and despair. I rested my face into my cupped palms and began crying uncontrollably. I raised my head out of my palms and threw up all over. I crawled weakly out of the water, trying desperately to regain my strength and get the hell out of the woods. I had just gotten out of the water and tried to stand, but collapsed halfway up. I felt my head smash against a small rock as I fell harshly onto the grassy forest floor. My vision blurred as I laid motionless lie on the ground. I coughed up blood all over the grass in front of me and blacked out. Forever. The second story. Mariesville, a deserted mining town. It all started a year ago when I woke up late during a school day. I figured I couldn't make it in time if I used the usual way, so I took the shortcut through the woods. Nobody likes to go to the woods because of the supposedly strange activity going on there. But I'd do anything to escape another detention. It was 8:40 a.m., and I only had another 20 minutes to get to school. I went the wrong way and took the route to the old deserted town of Mariesville. After walking through the empty town, I finally began to think I was lost. As I was walking, I saw eyes from the windows of the old buildings that lit up and followed me. I was spooked and quickly ran to the old farmhouse. I sat down on the haystack and thought to myself, how am I ever going to get out of here? Suddenly, the walls started dripping with blood and the smell of rotting flesh began to fill the air. I quickly ran outside, and I saw the former residents of Mariesville. They were all carrying out their duties normally, as if they were unaware of my presence. Then some trucks started pulling up at the entrance of the old town. Some German soldiers stepped out of the truck and started warning the residents to get out. The residents refused. The soldier started opening fire at the residents as I watched them flee and scream. Innocent blood was spilled and the soldiers burned down the buildings. I was shocked beyond belief and tried to run out of town. I thought all this was real until I suddenly ran through a German soldier. These people aren't real, I said to myself. I quickly exited the woods and ran back home. At home, I explained my experience to my family members. My dad went up into the attic and brought down a big book. He swatted away the dust and cobwebs and opened it. Mariesville used to be a thriving tin mining town, and also the home to several refugees of war, until the Germans became aware of the refugees' hideout. They slaughtered all the residents of Mariesville and burned down the buildings. No survivors were found that day. About 350 people lost their lives. Several witnesses who walked into the town claimed to have seen the history repeat itself. To this day, this phenomenon will continue to repeat its tragic story to any passers-by who might accidentally stumble upon the deserted mining town of Mariesville. The third story. What have you done, Martha? Darla and Stuart had started Callie on treatment, but were keeping her at home. They had come to ask Martha for some help taking care of and watching Callie for a few weekends while they went to visit their parents to help sort things out. They didn't want to put Callie through the hassle of picking up and moving while she was so sick, and the couple wanted to go together to visit their parents, but they wanted to make sure Callie was being watched after someone she knew and who cared about her a lot. Martha had no choice but to accept. Martha couldn't stand the idea of leaving Callie alone in a hospital or with a strange new live-in nurse. Martha spent the next few weekends with Callie, who looked worse and worse with each visit. Martha felt as if she was losing hold of herself and almost wished she had never met Darla and Stuart, wishing they had never moved in across the street. Martha loved Callie so much, but the pain she could see in Callie's eyes, where they were once full of joy and innocence, were now filled with pain and sadness. Callie looked down. Martha felt each time Darnley and Stuart spoke with the doctors, the news got worse. One of the last trips they were taking to see their parents, Martha was with Callie. Martha was alone with Callie all weekend, caring for her, reading to her, telling her stories, sharing everything she possibly could. Martha loved Callie and couldn't bear to see this poor, fragile, innocent child of life drained from her so slowly and painfully. When Darla and Stuart returned home from their trip, they thought it strange that Martha was not in her usual spot to greet them in the living room after having made sure Callie was asleep. Thinking she may be in the bathroom, Darla goes to Callie's room to check on her baby. On her way up the stairs, she starts to get a strange feeling, thinking something just does not feel right, that things are too quiet, and that she hasn't heard Martha in the bathroom she passed on her way upstairs, or hear even slightly snoring or cooing from Callie in her sleep as she neared the bedroom door. She quickens her pace and throws open the door to find Callie, who looks as if she is peacefully asleep in Martha's arms. Her attention eases slightly, thinking both are fast asleep. Darla gently goes over to wake Martha and pick up Callie, when she notices neither of them are breathing deeply, as one does. While they're asleep, she also notices that neither of their chests were rising and falling. Reaching out a hand to wake Martha, her fingers press against icy, hard skin. Darla screams, grabbing Callie, trying to shake her awake. Nothing happens. Stuart, seconds later, races into the room, bewildered at what all the commotion is, and after failing to understand what Darla is yelling about through her tears, Stuart's eyes fall upon a medication bottle that he hasn't ever seen of Callie's before. He picks it up and reads the name on the prescription bottle. It formerly belonged to a man then, named Stanley. Dropping the prescription bottle and slowly backing away, taking his wife in his arms, he looks from Callie to Martha, thinking, "Martha Stadler, what have you done?"